everybody and welcome to the Flute Practice. This video is part of a little series that I'm doing which is called Why You Should Practice, in this case, breathing. Now these are short little videos basically meant to motivate you to work on and tackle certain areas of your practice, and it's really hopefully going to show you why they are so important. These are often areas that are really neglected, and so I'm giving them a little bit of attention, and hopefully you will give them some attention too. So, breathing. Why we should practice our breathing. Yeah, you could argue, like I breathe in and out every single day, several thousands of times. I don't know the exact figure. Like, I know how to breathe, totally. And yeah, okay, you've got a point. But like, also, I just want to say that you are not like using those breaths to like, hold an instrument sideways awkwardly and make sounds that your human voice could never really achieve. Just saying. So there are kind of like two aspects to this. The one aspect is that like very often we have wrong ideas of breathing and we don't spend enough time to actually practice correct breathing. And we don't do this away from the flute enough. We kind of just like pick up the flute and want to play. So I've done videos on breathing and I'll probably do some more, but I'm going to send you guys to those ones because today I want to speak more specifically about practicing breathing within pieces of music. So often I find my students, they kind of play, they've learned the notes, they've maybe even done some of the dynamics and phrasing, and they're just kind of breathing wherever they like. And when I start getting them to actually like focus on, marking good breaths and so on and so forth, they really struggle. And this is because breathing, practicing to actually take those breaths in the right spot is not a priority for them. So they kind of just, magically hope that it will get there. So for example, if I'm going to play a piece of music and I got like a few studies here open in front of me. So I'm just going to use these. So I'm busy playing. Invariably, I'm probably going to make some really bad breathing choices. And the breathing thing is interesting because if we start taking bad breaths, we will usually just kind of carry on taking bad breaths. Where if we start taking good breaths and we keep taking good breaths, our breathing will be much better. Makes total logical sense, I think. So a nice little way that I like to practice breathing is to actually stop when you breathe. Take breaks between your breaths to really ensure that you are breathing in the right place and that you are also taking good breaths when you do breathe. So we're going to play. I'm going to stop and I'm going to really take a good breath. And often I find here, like sometimes I can get through one phrase and by the time I hit the second phrase, like I'm getting tired, I'm getting physically tired. And this is practicing stamina. You are practicing stamina. And if there is like one good argument that I could really encourage for why you need to practice this kind of playing and breathing, it's for stamina. You need to basically practice taking good breaths, getting in a lot of oxygen, controlling that air nicely over a long period of time. Because usually you can do it once or twice, maybe 3 times. But doing it consistently over like, a minute and a half, not so easy, especially for you beginners. But even for more advanced players, like very famous passages like Mendelssohn, Midsummer Night's Dream. No. So yeah, that's like one of the real challenges, and by the latest then, you're going to want to start practicing your breathing. So here are some cool little tips. The first one is and I've spoken a whole video about this, practicing long tones, super duper duper helpful. And one of the really, really, really helpful things to do is start with very little air. So you start in quite small, quite soft pianissimo and getting more and more and more. So doing that kind of a thing, even on a very beginner level, because this is really teaching us the skill of saving air. We don't want to just blow out all of our air at the beginning of a phrase. Just to get back to this kind of Mendelssohn, one of the big things you learn is how to control your air in the first 95% of the passage and then only let it go in the last 2 bars. And the big reason that you need to do this is because Otherwise, you're going to be stuck later. And I can feel if I'm going to get through the passage or not. Like halfway through, I know if I'm going to have enough air based on what I've done in the first half. And this is what practicing breathing really does. You learn to control that air, and you learn to understand and feel when you are controlling that air properly. Another really lovely exercise that you can do is, if you've got a passage like this, is to just try and hold a long tone for the full number of bars that you need to kind of not breathe. So in this Mendelssohn example, there are, let me count, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18 bars. I need to hold it for 18 bars of 3. So I will, for example, I will do, and I will do it maybe on the last notes. On the D, I'm going to do D. And so on and so forth, really starting quite small, less air, and going to the end. It often really helps to start in the highest note of the phrase, because that's usually where you use the most air. So you can hold the highest note of the phrase for 18 bars. You can do it on the lower notes too. What you can then do is you can start like progressively adding more and more notes of the phrase. So maybe you add one other note, then the note before it, you start like adding from the back more and more and more notes. Or even in this case, you could add bar by bar, but still holding the note. So you'll hold maybe the note for 17 bars, and then the last bar you'll play up to the note, and then you'll hold it for 16 and play the last 2 bars. So really nice little strategy how you can effectively practice your breathing. Now, the other really important thing, and I mentioned this earlier, so this is big, for example, in this Mendelssohn, you've got a whole passage before that where you already are short pressed for air. So getting through that passage is one thing, but then doing it in the context of the whole piece is a totally new game. And this is where we have to practice things, different kinds of breath. So tanking up on air, for example, not just like necessarily taking a big good breath, but how do we actually tank up on air so that we are ready for a good passage? Or, for example, we might need to learn how to take snap breaths. So how can we snap air that we need to snap? So, for example, this Mendelssohn, we do need to snap air. So we need to also practice different kinds of breaths. And I've done a video on the different kinds of breaths. And there's a really lovely exercise in the Peter Lucas Graf books. Check up that deals with like this tanking up air and snapping breaths and how to kind of practice this. I speak about in the video that I talk about different kinds of breaths. So guys, hopefully I'm just painting a picture of the complexity of the breathing here, and it's fun, it's great, it's exciting when we have control over these things, but they need to be practiced. Until then, everybody, happy breathing, happy practicing, and see you next time.